Have you ever seen an ant carry something big? It's pretty incredible, right? But have you ever seen a thirsty ant do this? Well, here's what happened to me. It was one of those hot summer days in Houston, Texas, where the heat index is like 120 degrees. And I was sitting outside by myself just thinking about life. And there's this little patio table next to me that has a bunch of crumbs on it. And I see these ants coming in from the outside. They get into the crumbs and then they start marching back out towards the grass, carrying these little crumb pieces. Now, mind you, these are like normal sized ants. They're not like carpenter ants or anything like that. And yet these ants were carrying things that looked as big to them as if I picked up a piece of steak off the ground and started walking away with it. It was huge. And I sat there watching these ants for a while because I thought, well, maybe it's a line of ants all working together to move one big crumb. But no, each individual ant was carrying its own crumb. And so I followed these ants out into the lawn to see where they were taking the crumbs and what was going on. And after following them for a bit, I saw their destination. They were going to a plant. And when they got to the plant, they would take their crumb and they would drop it in the plant. And then they would turn around and go back out to get another crumb. And they kept doing this over and over again. Now, at first I was puzzled by this behavior because I thought, why are they doing this? Like, why would they take the crumbs from the table and drop them in this plant? And then I realized, oh wow, these ants are actually watering their farm. They retaking food from this outside source and they redropping it into their plant so that their colony can eat. It was amazing to watch. And I stood there for a good 30 minutes just watching these ants work and do their thing. And as I watched them, I couldn't help but think, how can something so small and seemingly insignificant be so powerful? Because if you look closely at an ant, it's really not very impressive. I mean, they're tiny. They're weak, they're slow, they're not smart, they're not talented, they don't have any special powers. In fact, an ant is probably one of the most average creatures on the planet. Yet through their work, they can accomplish truly remarkable things. I mean, think about it. If one ant came across a crumb of food, it could easily just grab it and run back to the colony and enjoy the food by itself. But instead, what they do is they bring the crumb back to the other ants, who then take it and drop it in the plant, which waters the plant and provides food for the entire colony. The ants didn't know that they were creating this farm, but they knew that when they found food, they needed to bring it back to the colony, so they did. And in the process, they ended up accomplishing something far greater than themselves. In that moment, I realized that we humans are kind of like these ants. We might not be as organized or as disciplined as ants are, but we have the same basic instincts. When we find something good, we want to share it with our colony, even if we don't know exactly how it's going to be used. We bring the food back to the colony and let the others figure it out. And it's funny because we humans spend so much time trying to figure out what we want to do with our lives, you know? Trying to figure out our purpose and our mission and our goals and our dreams. And sometimes it's helpful to step back and realize that maybe we do need to overthink things. Maybe we just need to follow our basic instincts and do what comes naturally. Because just like the ants, when we bring our food back to the colony and let the others figure it out, we end up accomplishing things that we never could have imagined. That day, I went back inside and sat down at my computer, and I started writing out some ideas. I was starting to feel uninspired and stuck in my work, but after seeing the ants, I felt a new sense of purpose. I thought, well, maybe I should try to capture these ideas that I have and bring them back to the colony and let the others figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. I started writing down all the ideas that I had been having for different projects, and then I stopped writing. And I thought, well, now I'm gonna go show these ideas to the others and let them figure it out. That's what the ants did. And that's what I'm gonna do too. So I took these ideas and I started sharing them with people. And as I shared these ideas, I started getting feedback. And the more feedback I got, the more I realized that I had stumbled onto something big, something that had the potential to change my life forever. And it all started with a simple observation of some ants carrying crumbs to water their farm. And since then, I've tried to carry that lesson with me in everything that I do. Whenever I find something valuable, whether it's an idea or a resource or an opportunity, I try to bring it back to my colony and let the others figure it out. Because I've learned that when we do that, we accomplish things that we never could have imagined. And yes, I am aware that I'm anthropomorphizing the ants, but that's kind of the point. We can learn a lot from these little creatures if we take the time to observe them. There's this one study that was done by scientists who wanted to figure out how ants are able to carry objects that are 50 times heavier than they are. And their hypothesis was that ants are just really strong for their size. But as it turns out, that's not the case. Ants aren't actually that strong. They can only carry about twice their body weight. But through cooperation, they're able to carry things that are 50 times heavier than they are. The scientists were so surprised by this finding because it completely changed the way they thought about ants. They used to think that ants were just strong little creatures, but now they realize that ants are actually really smart. Scientists are still trying to figure out exactly how ants are able to coordinate their movements so well, but they believe that ants use a combination of chemical signals and body language to communicate with each other. So here's what that means for us humans. If ants can accomplish something that seems impossible, then we can too. It just takes a little bit of cooperation. If we're willing to put aside our differences and work together, we can accomplish things that we never could have imagined. There is this one story that I read about a group of villagers who were struggling to grow crops in their fields. They tried everything they could think of, but nothing seemed to work. Finally, they went to a wise man who lived in the village and asked him for help. The wise man didn't say anything. He just took them outside and pointed to a patch of grass that was growing in the middle of the village. The grass was green and lush, and the villagers had no idea how it was growing there. The wise man told them that the grass was being watered by a spring that was located on the outskirts of the village. He said that the water from the spring was seeping underground and watering the grass. The villagers were amazed. They couldn't believe that something so simple could be happening. They decided to dig up the area and install pipes to bring the water from the spring into their fields. And guess what? Their crops flourished. Here's what I love about this story. It's not just about the fact that the villagers were able to solve their problem. It's about the simplicity of the solution. Sometimes the answers we're looking for are right in front of us, and we just can't see them because we're too busy trying to overcomplicate things. The wise man didn't tell the villagers how to grow crops. He just showed them how to access the water that was already there, and that's often the case in life. The answers we were looking for are already there, and we just need to be able to recognize them. For example, when I was starting out in business, I thought I needed to come up with some crazy new idea that nobody had ever thought of before. But in reality, all I needed to do was take something that already existed and improve it. That's exactly what I did with my business, and it took off. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I was just trying to make the wheel a little bit better. So the next time you're faced with a problem, don't just focus on the problem. Take some time to look around and see what's already there. You might be surprised at what you find. If you like this video, check out this video where I talk about 9 lessons from nature that will change your life. And I'll see you in the next one.